This live stream brought to you by the Excelsior Citizen and these generous sponsors. Since 1974, Chuck Anderson Ford has proudly served the community's automotive needs. From new and pre-owned vehicles to parts and service, they've been there in the past and they'll be there in the future. Visit Chuck Anderson Ford today.
Does shelter insurance cover shiny red cars?
Yeah.
What about purple vans?
Also, yes.
Monster trucks?
What's going on, son?
From shiny red cars to purple minivans, you can count on Shelter's local agents to help you protect what matters most.
Our Excelsior Springs Hospital, where better care is right in your backyard.
Whether we're talking about our dedication to preventing and restoring power outages, our pursuit of safety, or providing the best member experience possible, we are relentless in serving our communities.
Find out how you can advertise with Excelsior Springs' #1 community resource. Visit excelsiorcitizen.com today.
To present who seems to be our representative, alumni, and assistant baseball coach. Yep.
Yeah, so I tell you what, to be a part of any state championship it's a beyond a special thing, and I know us at Excelsior Springs have been knocking on the door for quite some time, and oddly enough, last year was the year to get it done. So started off really hot as a team. Before that, started off with losing our head baseball coach to deployment. Had to make some adjustments and started off real hot as a team and hit some bumps near the end of the year. But really righted the ship and just not only as a team, but as a coaching staff and a community, man, just showed their Tiger pride the entire way. Minimally wavered as we went through some tough opponents, both to get to the state Final Four and in the state Final Four, and had some phenomenal play and some calls from our coaches and players to seal a deal and get our first ever state baseball championship. I could not be more proud of not only our players and coaches, but our community and their support throughout that run. It was a special moment and definitely an amazing thing to be part of. So congratulations, our 2026 Class 4 state baseball champions. We have Coach Simon Holst here representing our team. We had a few kids sign up and then a couple of them weren't able to find this location. So thank you very much, Coach Holst.
It's hard to get the kids here in the summer, but we tried.
Yeah, we tried. I think we had like 5 or 6 signed up last night. Sorry. That's what it is. Yes.
All right, moving right along to the MSBA delegate report. Darren.
Then we got a summertime video.
Summertime.
Welcome to the June edition of the Missouri School Boards Association's Board Report. We begin with a look back at the legislative session that wrapped up last month. MSBA Senior Director of Advocacy, Caitlin Whaley, has a recap for us of the session, but says that in the end, state revenue and the fiscal year 26 budget were the story of the session.
So the legislature, every year, their main job is to pass a budget for the state. So House Bill 2002, which funds the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, is the primary vehicle for funding for K-12 education. So a couple of those line items I want to cover are the foundation formula. So this is the basis for the state's support of education funding in the state. And throughout the process, the funding formula, both when the governor proposed it, the House version, the Senate version, and then the final version, were all $190 million short of fully funding. So it's obviously disappointing. Missouri has been made it a point of pride for around the last decade to fully fund the foundation formula, which is the statutory guideline for what is needed to fully fund schools. So coming $190 million short is certainly disappointing and will have a real impact in the classroom. But the funding that schools will receive will be mostly flat to what they received this year. As many of you know, the foundation formula this year was being paid short of the state adequacy target. The state adequacy target this year was funded at about $7,145 a student. But the actual paid out amount over the course of the year was around $6,900. That was due to funding through the lottery and Prop C coming in short, and so there was not enough cash to provide districts the funding they needed. And that funding level is roughly what we'll see next year, maybe a little bit lower in the foundation formula due to that $190 million shortfall. I will continue to caution that the fiscal outlook for the state is rocky for the next year. Revenues for the current fiscal year are coming in about what was estimated, but that's still about a 2% decrease over the previous fiscal year. So, I encourage you to, pay attention to any messaging Linda Quinley puts out, and be budgeting responsibly to make sure that we have what we need to support our students in the classroom.
Caitlin also has an update on the A through F rating system for schools.
Another piece of legislation that didn't pass, but we're going to get the policy anyway, is A to F. As you might remember, the governor said that he wanted an A to F rating system for school districts and school buildings, and he established it through executive order in his State of the State speech in January. And the legislature had, throughout the year, been working on a legislative version of A to F that would have superseded the executive order. But ultimately, that piece of legislation got wrapped up into the deal that involved the charter schools and some other education policies, and no A to F legislation was passed. So that doesn't mean that it's not coming, it just means that we will be getting it through executive order. We have not seen regulations yet from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, which is what will be required before it can be implemented. So it will not be implemented for the coming school year. It would not be ready to go until school year beginning in 2027.
To see Caitlin's full summary of the session, check out the extended edition of this month's board report on the MSBA website or MSBA's YouTube channel. The extended edition also covers topics from the session such as charter expansion, moving school board elections, and much more. MSBA's legislative positions on state and federal education issues are determined by the Delegate Assembly that will be meeting this coming October. If your school board has a position statement on an issue that you would like to submit to the Advocacy Committee for consideration, you can do so this summer. The Advocacy Committee reviews those proposals and makes recommendations to the Delegate Assembly that determines MSBA's positions on issues. And make your plans now to attend the 2026 MSBA Annual Conference in cooperation with the Missouri Association of School Administrators and the Missouri Association of School Business Officials, to be held October 22nd through the 24th in Kansas City. The event will once again feature outstanding general session speakers along with a wide variety of concurrent sessions, many presented by school leaders from districts throughout the state. Registration information for the conference will be posted on the MSBA website soon. And finally, congratulations to all of the regional winners of MSBA's Future Builders Student Scholarships. And congratulations to Luke Wolf of the School of the Osage, who is also the statewide winner. All of the students' essays are on the MSBA website. These outstanding students truly exemplify the amazing teaching and learning happening in every corner of the state. That's it for this month. Thanks so much for allowing us to have some time at your board meeting, and we'll see you in July for the next MSBA board report.
Anything further, Darren?
No, sir.
All right. No visitors, Lisa? All right. Moving right along to F, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Bullymore.
Yeah, just if it pleases the board, share some updates from around the district so far this summer. Elementary summer school update, so there's some fun pictures there. So elementary summer school kept strong enrollment numbers throughout the summer, averaging about 420 daily. They've attended 2 swim days at the Excelsior Springs Rec Center, so another good partnership we have with them. And then they also participated in bowling and an end of the session field day. Some of the students, especially the lower grades during field day, they did not get to do their water balloon fight because of rain. So I advised them all, the superintendent said they could go home and jump in mud puddles. So if anyone got calls, you can call me on that. But they were all very excited.
Thank you for that, by the way.
They were all very excited to jump in some mud puddles. Secondary summer school update. So middle school enrollment for the summer school programming, about 96 incoming 6th graders, 63 current 6th grade students, 47 current 7th grade, and 15 current 8th grade students participating in the freshman remediation. Field trips throughout June included visits to Science City, Smithville Lake, Watkins Mill, Toy and Miniature Museum, Jesse James Farm, Kansas City Aquarium, Mid-Continent Library, local park, and the community center swimming. High school, human performance had 133 students still participating through that. Personal finance had 95, health 95, ACT prep 39, and we were able to pay for 33 vouchers to take the ACT on June 13th. The big one at the middle school that's always been popular and continues to grow is that 6th grade transition class. I have a 5th grader transition to 6th grade, so just being able to go travel the hallways, see the lockers, get on the canvas, do those types of things. And then they're also, I believe, implementing an agenda this year, so all the 6th graders will be given agendas, and so they're going to show how to fill those out and go through that. So hopefully that will help with getting their work done and keeping their day organized. So we're excited to introduce that over at the middle school. So exciting stuff happening this summer. Last day was last Thursday. So now they're all at home, so all the parents can appreciate all the teachers in schools for the next 6 or 7 weeks till they come back. So.
One board member was just speaking to that.
How
much they appreciate having
I know my wife is loving having her 3 new coworkers at home with her. So state leadership transition, I thought maybe they would hit this over there in the MSBA report. So some big changes at high levels and the biggest offices in the state. So if you look through there, Commissioner and Deputy Commissioner of Education, as well as the Board President of the State Board of Education, have all resigned or retired. The Governor has already appointed 2 new members of the State Board of Education, and then also they have appointed a interim Commissioner of Education. And so, reading the tea leaves there, I think you can see some significant changes still to happen when it comes to public education in the state of Missouri. Usually these things don't happen within 2 weeks, right? Usually there's some things that are drawn out there. You announce your resignation 6 months to a year ahead of time. So it's interesting to see, how this impacts public education moving forward in some of these news. So keep an eye on that, because that'll dictate, could dictate what happens within our schools. And then summer kickoff and 26-27 preparation. So that first week of June, district administrators participated in a 3-day summer kickoff and academic boot camp, planned and prepared for our own Dr. Miller. Very successful day. So administrators got together with our new administrators coming into the district and our current administrators, aligned district and building leadership teams to the new strategic plan, developed building improvement plans and academic priorities, focused on instructional leadership, curriculum planning, and student achievement. Began developing building level professional development and implementation plans, and we'll continue to follow up with them throughout the summer to be ready for that to kick off. Very excited. And then we also had a theme of Taste of Excelsior Springs, where we got all kinds of food from throughout Excelsior Springs. So we were able to eat lunch at the Yelp or at the Hollow Waters one day, got a taste from all kinds of food another day.
My favorite thing from every restaurant in Excelsior Springs.
It's Dr. Miller's favorite
made
thing.
Sense.
But we got to go to Dairy Beans, so everyone loved that too. So it was a great time. Dr. Miller did a great job planning. That was a great time to get the team together, and then they have all summer to plan for and be ready to kick off when staff comes back. So lots of stuff can get done when you don't have most of your employees or students around. So it's amazing how fast the day goes and how much work you get done. So, Mr. President, without any questions, that's all that I have.
All right. Any questions for Dr. Bullimer for that? All right, moving right along. First item up for discussion and approval is the approval of the lease agreement resolution. Dr. Bullimer.
I'd like to introduce Dr. Reich, and Ben Thompson is here from Gilmore and Bell. So Dr. Reich's third appearance for the Board of Education.
Glad to be here again.
Thank you for being here, sir. I'll hand it over and you can walk it through it.
Less than an hour down the road. I love spending time with you guys. Thanks for having me again. And just to kind of recap, we talked about recently, I know Dr. Bullimer's had you in a work session recently this summer. I talked with you a little bit last month about some budgetary issues. So kind of working through a plan that would address some short-term budgetary stress, particularly over the next 6 years. We also talked about addressing your capital needs down the road here, along with bolstering operating revenue and then refunding debt when your debt is callable so that we can lower your total interest cost. And so with that big plan in mind, the first step would be to refund your bank debt, which is would be refunding the U.S. bank loan and the First State Community Bank loan for various projects. Doing so on a 20-year term, which would stretch the term out longer, and I'll come back to that in just a moment. Stretch the term out longer. If you were to carry that debt longer, you would pay more in interest costs. In the short term, it provides about $175K per year of budgetary relief in a time when most people are projecting some painful years ahead. And by the way, just the old adage, misery loves company. I'm talking about strategies like this in almost every district I'm working with. Every district is, just about every district, is trying to find ways to cut their budget and do so in ways that are less painful to staff and students and parents. And so just a little context there. This is tough times for everybody with the state projecting revenue reductions, lowering of the state adequacy target, the tax credit program, Senate Bill 190, comes right out of your revenue, elimination of the state income tax on the horizon potentially, voucher expansion. I could go on, but I won't. You get the point. This is a time when most districts are hitting the caution button, and Excelsior Springs is no different in that regard. So this does provide some short-term budgetary relief. The ultimate plan would be to carry this debt until 2033 when your Lewis Elementary COPS are callable, at which time we would take out those COPS and this bank debt, or this COP debt, and we should realize savings at that time, depending on where rates are, that would exceed the amount outstanding that you have on these two bank debt loans. So the Lewis Elementary COPS are callable in 2033. And so to move forward with this financing or refunding to provide that short-term budgetary relief, we have developed parameters, and Mr. Thompson's going to go over the legal document, but basically we cannot exceed 1.55 million in par amount. The TIC cannot, the true interest cost cannot exceed 4.8. Our latest run on numbers here, we would be in the 4.5, 4.6 range. So we're well underneath that 4.8 threshold. 20-year term, you would not pay us any more than $10,000 for this transaction, and the final maturity, although we do not intend to carry this debt that long, would be 4/1 of 2046. With that introduction, I just wanted to answer any questions that you may have before I turn it over to Mr. Thompson to take some action.
And just a reminder for the board, I know it's been a couple weeks or months since we had our board work session. There's that on now. Just a reminder, this was kind of that final step that we presented in the board workshop and in the budget to do the final balancing of the budget at the end there. So just kind of look back on how we got here and why, and the plan to refinance that in 2033 with the Lewis. So.
Questions?
I had an original question that was where I noticed that you did have that 4.8 not to exceed 4.8, and like where are we at today? Because I wasn't a part of it whenever we took it on, and but I think just the savings of 175 tells us what we need to know with that. So I had asked that question early, but I don't know that I necessarily need to know that as long as we're going to be saving some money.
And 4.5, 4.6 today, but we hope that with the holiday coming, volatility tends to calm down around holidays. But you guys are reading the same headlines I am, and that's driving municipal rates. So we hope to hold that. 4.8's our threshold, though. We can't go any higher than that, and but hopefully we can do better than where we are today. Turn it over to Mr. Thompson.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Yeah, so Ben Thompson with Gilmore and Bell in Kansas City. Worked with the district on a lot of your bond financing and lease financing, so it's good to be back. What you have in front of you is a resolution that authorizes the issuance of certificates of participation. And as Mike explained, this is a parameters resolution. So in years past, and when we've done bond deals, they price the day that you have a board meeting, and Mike or the underwriter will bring the actual final pricing numbers to the board and say, here's how the sale went. It's a little bit different in the fact that once this resolution is approved, the pricing will occur at a later date. I think it's currently scheduled for July the 7th. The nice thing about parameters resolutions is that if there is volatility in the market, Mike and his team they don't have to price on July the 7th. They can say, okay, we're going to wait a week, we're going to wait 2 weeks, we're going to hold. The pricing has to meet the parameters set forth in the resolution for it to be approved. So current schedule is July 7th. Like I said, that can move a little bit, and closing on July 21st. So the action item is to approve the resolution, which authorizes the certificates, assuming that they meet the parameters. So, any questions, I'm happy to answer.
So it's a 20-year not to exceed 4.8.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
On the true interest cost.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have the motion does have to read specifically?
Yeah, I
The
think
recommendation
yeah,
that
it's
you
in
see
that.
on the
Okay.
screen.
Yep.
That's the motion.
Okay. So I'd entertain a motion to approve the recommended. Do you want me to read that, Lisa, or do you want whoever motions?
Either way, either one is.
I'll read this and this because this has to be part of the motion. Okay. So entertain a motion to approve the resolution authorizing Excelsior Springs School District 40 to enter into a lease purchase transaction to refinance the cost of certain projects, approving the delivery of certificates of participation, evidencing interest in the lease purchase agreement, and approving the execution of certain documents in connection therewith, and as presented by Dr. Blowmore.
So moved.
First by Darren,
Second.
second by Jill. Questions for either gentleman? No questions?
No questions. I think this makes sense to do. We've talked about it a lot. It allows us to balance our budget, et cetera. Just one thing I try to think about, and I'm sure everyone else up here does as well, is like not doing something that some future board will say, what were those people back in 2026 doing, right? They put us into a bind. So I think it's just important to say, like, publicly that our intention is to, like, we're pushing some debt out in the future with the intention to repay it in 2033, right? Not to just keep pushing it into the, out into someone else's problem, basically. So I think it makes sense what we're doing. I just wanted to say that, publicly. I think it's important for us as a board to say that.
It's a great point.
Any other comments, questions? All right, hearing none. It doesn't have to be a roll call, does it? All right, all those in favor? And that passes 6-0. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Good evening.
All right, next up is approval of the fiscal year 2026 end of year budget items. Dr. Bullman.
So as we do every year, or I'm doing for the first time, this is the time of the year we push this back and we need to approve all the expenditures through the end of the month so we can get that wrapped up. And then we're able to end our fiscal year. So I will make the motion as it's been made in the past. So it's recommended the Board of Education approve to complete the payment of FY26 district expenses through June 30th, 2026, and to approve amend the FY26 district budgeted revenues and expenditures to actual amounts effective June 30th, 2026, and as presented by Dr. Bolmore.
Do I have that motion to approve?
So moved.
First by Jill. Second? Anyone? Bueller?
Second.
Brett is the second. Questions, comments? All right, all those in favor? And that passes 6-0. All right, next up is approval of the long-range facility plan update and agreement. Dr. Bolton.
All right, we have IDS here for our presentation. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's go. Is this a clicker that will work for the presentation?
Maybe, maybe not.
Okay, we will find out together.
He gave us a thumbs up, so we're ready to go.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for having us tonight. My name is Ariel Pyson-Burrow. I'm a planner architect, and I lead our studio, our Kansas City studio, which, as you all will well know, we've had a very great relationship with the school district and look forward to continuing that relationship as we think about the next coming years. And so that's what I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking about tonight. We've hit a lot of milestones. If you recall, when we were in our 2017, 2018 range, there was a lot on the horizon. There were a lot of things that needed to be accomplished during that time period, a lot of facilities to take into account. And man, we have checked a lot of boxes since then. And so as we look into the next decade and how are we going to maintain our current assets, and then also, as much as we can, look into the future about what those future needs may be and try to plan accordingly. So, moment of truth.
I got you. Maybe. There you go.
So as I mentioned, we'll cover just a little bit of where we've been tonight, and I'll keep it brief, but if there's any questions along the way, please feel free to stop me and ask them. We can go ahead and go to the next slide. Of course, I understand you guys were recently updating your strategic plan, and it's always great to see how these change over time. I had seen the previous one, and Dr. Bullimore had just shared the most updated one, and it's just encouraging to see, again, as you continue that investment in students in the district and the community, how you're continuously reevaluating what those needs may be and what your goals are going to be ultimately. We can go ahead and skip ahead too. So I'm just going to do a brief overview here. We can go to the next one. So again, I mentioned, that 2017-2018 timeline was really when we began our significant relationship here with Excelsior Springs School District. And if you click to the next one here, it began with that long-range facility plan process. So at the time, there was a lot of engagement with staff and administration and the community about, what are things that, what's the goals of the district? What are things that we'd like to be accomplishing? Not just with our facilities, but with the community and the staff and students as a whole. And so that process began by establishing these 5 goals here, which included a lot of emphasis on maintaining our current assets, but also being cognizant of things that the future may bring. A lot of discussion about what innovative learning environments looked like at the time, constantly evaluating student needs and how we can best serve them from a facility standpoint. And as a part of that, I just included as a snapshot, because I think it's really telling of how far we've come during that time, was the kind of initial plan for Lewis Elementary. And at the time, you can see this was a very high priority facility to begin to start planning for. And throughout the process, at that time, we of course accomplished that. But a snapshot of really the level of work that we would anticipate also moving forward with as we kind of study this next round of what's changed in the past decade, and again, what are things that we may need to be planning for in the future. We can hit the next slide just really briefly here. So at the time, there were actually 2 options that broke out the various projects into multiple phases, and they each had, kind of their strengths and maybe some challenges that may be presented along with them. But that was a result of ultimately that plan and some of the information that was shared with the community at that time. So then stemming from that plan, we had, you can go to the next slide. The phase 1 bond projects were completed in alignment with that plan that was created. That included Cornerstone Elementary, of course, the renovations to Elkhorn, the Early Childhood Center, and the high school. And then as soon as those projects were completed, there was another successful bond that was passed in order to continue supporting the community and the facilities. And that included, slide 9, Lewis Elementary, of course, which I mentioned just a few minutes ago, as well as the Excelsior Springs Career Center, front entry renovations, and the football field improvements. So there's a lot that's been done over the past decade. And I think we're all at the point, reflecting on the list that had been established at that time. A lot of things have been crossed off, but also some things have changed in that time. 2020 fell right in there, and of course, we're all still realizing some of the changes in both demographics and enrollment in the district, and that plays hand in hand into what current and future facility needs are going to be. So we can click ahead. Of course, what's next? Let's go ahead and go to slide 12, just passing one more here. So as I mentioned, enrollment is a big part of this discussion. Where were you projected to be when we initially did this plan 10 years ago versus where you are today versus what does the next 10 years begin to look like? Facility conditions can change a lot in that time period as well. As much as we try to anticipate what some of those needs may be over that timeline, things inevitably change, and we need to be really cognizant of what that is and what the financial impact of those improvements may be needed. Of course, programming can also change. I think you guys are in a great position with a lot of your facilities now and the work that's already been done to address the programming side, but inevitably I'm sure there are going to be questions, comments, just things that come up through community discussion about additional expansion of some of those elements and how that might align to some of the other needs, as well as safety, security, technology, and of course the community priorities. So as we begin to think about what all of that means in terms of moving forward, what did the next 3-6 year look like for the school district. We can go to the next slide. What we would really recommend moving into this fall, and we could start this summer, although it's both busy and slow during the summer. It's busy in the fact that there's a lot of administrative work that's occurring, but it's also slower because a lot of your families are taking vacations. You have community members that are just naturally busier during these months. So we would recommend during this time focusing more internally with some facility analysis and assessment. So really getting more boots on the ground, eyes on the facilities, and understanding, okay, what's the conditions of these? Do we need to have some engineers out to review any of the existing systems? Other professionals assessing roofs or HVAC work would also be included in this as well. Along with that, we would recommend studying capacity at this time. So again, what is the current capacity of facilities? What do they have the capability to sustain in terms of, hey, we need to reduce load in this facility, or hey, we're actually able to add additional capacity out of this based off of enrollment at a current facility. But then also, what are the trends? You know, are there significant housing developments or other types of properties anticipated in the community that would result in an influx or a decrease in that enrollment as well? Along with this, of course, starting to think about as we move into the fall, what kind of committee members would be beneficial to be involved in some of this decision-making process. We always recommend having, a great handful of voices at the table that are going to bring different opinions and a variety of opinions, because everybody's going to have a unique perspective on the district and what the necessary impacts are going to be. So then as we move into the fall, we can go here into this next one. This is really where a lot of that hands-on discussion and consensus and community building comes into play. So really using visioning meetings to go over, okay, we did a lot of data collection over the summer months. Here is all that data. What does that data mean? What are some of the impacts we could see based off of what that data is telling us? And then how do we start to prioritize what those needs are with the funds that may be available? And we always try to approach these with the alignment that should there need to be any board decision in the December or January timeframe for a potential election in the spring, that we're ensuring that our steps are aligned to that possibility. And so you'll see the overall timeline is really meant to maintain this repetition of meetings, consensus building, and then also bring this back, okay, this is what the group discussed. Is there anything that needs to shift in here? Are we okay proceeding here? And then again, take it back to the group and continue this cycle of ensuring that there is transparency in the community and the board and the staff and students for what decisions are being made within that group. So then finally, that would move us then into that November timeframe, which is really just focused on consensus. So we can skip here to the next one. So at this time, the committee work itself would be formalized into a draft long-range facility plan that would include the recommendations of that committee with the information at hand and the discussion as well. We anticipate, really during this phase or the previous phase, it's always a great opportunity to do additional survey work within the community as well. So if there's a preliminary idea of what some of these prioritized needs are, that we're doing a gut check with the community of saying, hey, this is what our plan would be. Is this something that you feel is would be supported by the community? Are there any questions you may have with what some of these recommendations are? And so that, again, we're always having that constant back and forth communication throughout the entirety of the stakeholders involved. So all this, again, leads into having that facility master plan approved by the board ultimately. We typically see this in the December or January timeframe, but would plan to have that draft presentation prepared prior to that, just depending on scheduling and how the committee work is progressing. I feel like I've spoke very quickly, but again, we put potential election on here just to be cognizant of overall time frames to ensure that decision making is occurring along a timeline that would make sense should the board and district ultimately align with that next step. And that's really what the next slide is showing. Should it come to that part, there is a lot of support documentation that we've assisted the district with previously and would be aligned with doing that again with the district should it come to that. So the last thing I have is just really an overview of the schedule, and there's a lot of dates on here, and thankfully I can read it even though I'm not wearing my glasses tonight, but it's just meant to show, again, this is going to be very much a multi-step process that's involving many groups of stakeholders that's meant to garner the feedback of all parties involved to ensure that what that plan ends up being is something that's fully vetted by all groups involved.
Great job. So just to follow up on, great presentation, by the way, Ariel. Thank you. So something that we've talked about a lot throughout the spring and as we were getting to the budget is just understanding, I think we've been talking about it for almost a year now, just our deferred maintenance needs that have really added up on us when we look at our roofs, when we look at some of our sporting facilities that need to be replaced or upgraded, when we look at some of our parking lots that still need to be redone. And so those are something that would be a key aspect of this as well, as understanding what some potential costs of those are. I know Ariel spoke to it several times, running this side by side, which is our next action item, with that enrollment demographic study, and working with them, starting that now so that most of that process can be done as they're collecting their data, and then understanding what will our student needs be for the next 3, 5, 10 years. And that's a company that IDS has worked very closely with on all the other projects. Essentially, they work with every school district. When you go through this process, just so you understand, this is what the student need is now, this is what it could be. As we look at attrition, do we have more kindergartners coming in? Do we have less? We know it's a great time to meet with administrators throughout the summer. Some of them are here. What do your classroom spaces look like next year? Do we have this many open classes? Are we full on classes? And that's a big piece of that capacity study. So again, following up on big things that we've talked about throughout this year and trying to get that ready, and understanding it's an important time to do that so we can get into those classrooms now, and then trying to get these things done before December or January if there was another action that we would want to make or plans that we can make moving forward. So just kind of piggyback on the work that we've done here and kind of plant that seed. But good job, Ariel. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Are there any other questions I can help answer? All right. Well, thank you all.
Thank you. Tell Aaron we would have approved it, but he didn't show up, so.
Oh, I will text him for sure. You don't have to.
Is the cost in alignment with what we have paid in the past for similar work? I just haven't.
Yes. Yeah. So I looked at that before. The cost was very aligned with what we've done before the last time. I believe was in 2021. So
yeah, just before Lewis.
Yep, just before Lewis would have been done.
Yeah, also on cost, just I see the flat amount here, 35,000.
Mhm.
There's a section about some percentage-based charges for base services. It's on the page. Are
Yep.
we 9%, 8%? Are we committing ourselves to any of that, or would that be something that we would look at further? Like if we decide we need an upgrade to a building or something.
If those are things that we have, IDS, I mean, you can help with that contract portion if you want.
Yeah, so that's really just an informational piece that we include at the end of the contract. Should any of the long-range plan items result in actual building action, there would be additional proposals that would align to that work and show the percentage. So that's really meant to be informational based off of different construction costs, renovations, new construction, so that there aren't any surprises come the future, whatever that may bring.
And those proposals would come back to the board?
Yes, because you'd have to approve the whole, whatever, addition to Cornerstone or a new road, whatever,
Yeah, those don't have any impact on the work currently being proposed as part of the long-range facility plan.
One thing that was on the slide earlier, and I wasn't on the board during our last plan, it mentioned, if I remember correctly, football field improvements completed 2025. What is that?
Yeah, I saw that too. I think those were some of the landscaping things that we had to do.
That was the wall structure that we have on the scoreboard side. It was mowing there for a little bit, so we had to go back in and reinforce that.
Yeah. We were able to work that in construction management. So. Nothing pretty. Stuff, It's like that deferred maintenance. It's never fun and always expensive.
It's kind of pretty.
Well, that's true.
It keeps the hill from washing down on the tracks.
Prettier than HVAC, right, Ariel?
It's all necessary.
Yeah. All right, I'd entertain a motion to approve the long-range facility plan update and agreement as presented.
So moved.
First by Jill. Second by Darren. Questions, comments? For Dr. Bullimore or Ariel? Anyone? All right. All those in favor? And that passes 7-0. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, next up is approval of the enrollment and demographic study. Dr. Bullimore.
All right, another thing that we talked about, again, about 3 minutes ago, but that we piggybacked on throughout the spring, just really trying to prepare now that we have a strategic plan and trying to prepare what the future looks like for the Tigers. I think the very first time we went through the long-range facilities plan and a demographic study with IDS, I think we had planned that we were going to grow so much we were going to need a 5th or 6th grade center at some point. That has changed dramatically with a little thing called COVID. People are having less babies, enrollment's going down, there's online schooling, homeschooling, and so really we need someone to come in and really do a very good demographic enrollment study alongside IDS that they can use as they go through their capacity study. So we're not just looking for capacity of what we have now, but it's down the road. And it piggybacked on your guys' questions earlier of how do we set up the next board or the people after us to make sure we're making good decisions to be prepared for that. So this study, working with RSP and Associates, so they are the premier demographic enrollment study company. I couldn't find a school that had used someone else, to be quite honest, and it's who IDS has worked with primarily. So they'll go through this process. They will create enrollment analysis and student forecast model, examine historical enrollment trends, student migration patterns, birth data, housing, development activity, demographic trends, and other factors that influence the enrollment. And that will provide a 5-year enrollment projection and support future planning and district making related to facilities, attendance areas, and programming. They'll also include projections, maps, and then they'll have a tool through the long-range facilities plan. If we decide to reimagine a building or how we use different spaces, they can plug that into their little map and say, well, this is what this would do to enrollment here. If this grade level were there, this is what that would do. And so that helps them as they go through their work, if there were to be changes made, knowing how that would impact the capacity at those buildings as we move forward. So really trying to build through both the long-range facilities plan and the demographic and enrollment study, trying to build, I don't want to say a cafeteria or buffet, but understanding, okay, what are all the things that we need to replace or we need to upgrade? Where are we being efficient? Where can we be most efficient? Where are we being inefficient? And really, so we can use every dollar the best that we can for things that may not be pretty, like HVAC, things that may be pretty, like knowing that we have to replace the track, knowing that the softball turf has gaps in it, knowing we have about $10 million on the roof. So really having all these things laid out in front of us with the experts who do it, so then we can make a plan on, okay, this is what we need to do now. And then if for some reason there's $1 million that falls in our lap and we have a month, we have a plan on this is what we want to do with this here, this is what we need to do here, and having a plan moving forward so we can be very pragmatic and prepared for when these things happen. So all that being said, I recommend the Board of Education approve the enrollment analysis as presented. That total cost would be $14,500 with RSP Associates to complete the enrollment analysis and demographic study.
First by Tracy. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Jill. Questions? Comments?
I just want to comment, I like that you use the word efficient and inefficient when talking about like long-range facilities and operations. And it seems like we need to have this demographic study done along with that long-range facility plan. We can't do one without the other and be efficient.
Yeah, and actually Tracy had brought up a great question of, you know, why wouldn't you do the demographic before the long-range facilities, which makes sense on its face, right? Like we need to know how many kids we have, but really they want to go through this together so we're not having them build 5 different plans or knowing that it could change. And so when you see districts go through this, they really do it side by side and they're good at working together with that. So that way they're like, well, if this is a good plan, what would it do to enrollment at this school? Or if you were to do this with this grade level, what would it do there? And so they can work side by side with RSP through the process so they can kind of know what those adjustments would be as they present things. So that's why you see those done side by side a lot.
I think we owe it to the community.
100%.
That we are efficient, so it makes sense to me.
All right. Any other questions? Comments? All right. Hearing none. All those in favor? And that passes 7-0. All right. You get a break finally. Approval of the 26-27 meal prices. Mr. Gilkey.
Okay. So in front of you, you see the proposed meal prices for 26-27. What we are proposing is a 25% increase to paid breakfast and lunches for 26-27. all.
25 cent or 25%?
25 cents.
Sorry.
Sorry, did I say percent?
If I misheard you, I didn't know.
I thought you said percent.
Yeah.
I thought that might cause alarm in some people.
A 25%
Got it.
increase on paid breakfast and lunches for 26-27. So I'll kind of walk through how we got there. So we start with USDA has what's called a paid lunch equity tool the districts are to complete that give a recommended, I say recommended, depending on your financial situation, it can be mandatory, but a price set, so that 25-cent increase puts our average lunch price at $2.95, and that leaves us 50 cents under where the paid lunch equity tool is recommending that we set our meal prices. There are a couple ways that you don't have to follow that recommendation. One is, which is we would be using in this situation, is you can always elect to go as low as a 10% increase if there, or a 10-cent increase if they're telling you that you need to increase. So that's kind of where that process starts. Then we factor in our contract with Airmark and increase prices for that are already contractually agreed for 26-27. We know what those prices are. So factoring in that, we've also had some federal food service program that we had to scale back significantly this year based on program requirements that we can't continue to operate with the program requirements as they exist today. That has really limited our federal revenue in food service. And so all of those things considered, a 25-cent increase we're projecting that we would still run in the black, so we wouldn't run a deficit, but what we're projecting based off of this year's numbers and those price increases, what we expect to see, or what we know we'll see with price increase from Airmark and what we'll see in reduced federal revenue is about a $6,000. It would be a $6,000 difference, meaning we'd be $6,000 in the black right now. So if we dropped to that 10-cent increase, that goes from a $6,000 in the black to we're automatically $13,000 in the red, and that's before. Again, that's assuming that everything goes the way that we're hoping it does. So a 25-cent increase is what we're recommending. What you don't see on here is reduced prices. Those are federally set, so those stay the same. It's still 30 cents for a reduced breakfast and 40 cents for a reduced lunch. So those don't change. Our milk prices don't change. This is in alignment with, so I would say specifically Kearney in terms of suburban metro schools, and then under, for the most part, the other communities that are suburban, but it's more similar to us. Platte County is a little bit more varied, so they've got some prices, like a breakfast price that'll be under us, but then a lunch price that'll be over us. Kearney, this is really close in alignment with us. I would say the biggest thing for us is because those program requirements, where they're at with some of that federal programming, that we're not able to utilize those programs anymore, has reduced our revenue significantly. That program has also allowed us to not raise meal prices previously, and so having to scale back the operation of those programs means that we take a bigger hit this year. I think most likely what we're probably looking at after this year, not knowing what funding is going to look like, is probably that 10-cent increase annually is probably what most districts are looking like, and what we'll have to consider moving forward. But for this year, again, to ensure that we're not going into the year operating in a deficit, a 25-cent increase on paid lunch and breakfast is the recommendation.
I think a trend that Mr. Gilkey and I have noticed as well, and I think the buildings have, and I know for sure Dr. Everett has, because a lot of her funding is based on federal funds and free and reduced, is whether we realize it or not, just anecdotally being around town, we've lost a lot of our free and reduced population. So it continues to go down. And so we continue to have school buildings that are not meeting the threshold anymore of being eligible. I think a lot of them are 50% free and reduced, and so we're losing that eligibility. And a lot of times when you're eligible for those things, it's a 3-year eligibility, I think, for a lot of those programs, and so they're starting to fall off. And so as we speak to parents, it's going to be a big push for us to make sure we fill those forms out and get them back. Because it impacts things besides just lunch, even if you don't eat lunch. It impacts federal programming, impacts some of our title funds that we get, some of our academic funds. I know it increases some of the technology grants that we can get. So it's going to be really important that we fill those things out and send them back, even if we don't plan on eating lunches all the time, because it impacts how we do business as a district overall, those numbers. And so you'll see and hear a big push from us trying to get those forms back this year. trying to get those numbers back to where we do believe they are, especially in the current economy where people are at.
Yeah, well, sorry, I meant to mention that. I think a few specifics that we'll look at. Again, we're going to make a focused effort this year. Not that we haven't tried in the past, but we recognize that we really have to push that. We've offered free lunches at summer school the last several years. Currently, next summer would be the last summer that we would be able to do that, unless, again, we see some numbers change there. We've already recognized that we've got some title adjustments that we've got to make in buildings based on buildings that previously qualified for on free and reduced that no longer do. So some staffing things of what we can pay with federal funds versus what we can't previously. So those are things that we're having to work through already, knowing that either like in title it's changing already, or we've got some things that are qualified on a 3 or 5 year basis that will go away. Again, the thought is not that we don't have the demographics to qualify for those things, but we need to increase the number of returned applications for people that we think would qualify. So.
I suspect that we ended the year, we haven't seen the numbers or anything, but I suspect we ended the year with like potentially a deficit in our food services. Oftentimes we have balances that are either we carry them over or there's like what's left. How do we resolve that? And then also if we're going up 25 cents, like what do we anticipate that to look like if that similar trend continues where some students or families are unable to pay or don't pay? What does that look like?
Yeah, so a couple things. So this year we're not projecting to run a deficit, but that is primarily because of that federal programming that we were running really through January helps offset significantly. So removing that, so I guess going through that, so removing that next year, before I factor in increased costs from Airmark, our surplus next year would be $22,000. When then I factor in the increased cost from Airmark next year, it's projected to be about $38,000, which is a $16,000 difference. So the increased price is helping to make up for that deficit that we're projecting to run next year, again based off of increased cost and reduced financial or federal revenue. So that being said, what we've had surpluses in the past, and there are things that we can spend that on specifically in food service. Some of the things that we've been able to do with that, like the Lewis Kitchen has been paid for through those funds. We've been able to do some of those things. Moving forward, we won't have that. I think specifically maybe to your question at the end about what we'll have to do with student balances. We've been relatively fortunate that we've had community groups that have helped cover those expenses or those debts to this point. Those are things that we would continue to try to have those partnerships, but at the end of the day, if those don't come through and we're running a $6,000 balance, it's not going to cover all of the student debt that we have to cover, and we will end up running in the negative in food service. So
covered through operations.
So I'd entertain a motion to approve the 26-27 meal prices.
So moved.
First by Darren. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Kayla. Any further questions? I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to get the motions on there. No further questions? No discussion? No further discussion? All right. All those in favor? And that passes 7-0. Thank you, sir. Next up, Mr. Baker. Approval of co-curricular and extracurricular programs. Didn't mean to scare you. We tried to, been ducked.
All right, members of the Board of Education, fellow administrators, central office people, thank you so much for allowing me to present our extracurricular and co-curricular program evaluation for 25-26. As I began to gather some information and kind of look at what we have done last year, I think it's well to note that a few indicators on what we believe success would be as far as program participation for me kind of jumped off the charts when we looked at kind of what we have as participants this year. We had about 145 new kids participate this year versus last year. to bring our commitment number to 1,200 kids, roughly. And on the other side of that is, do we have kids participating, and are we having more kids being recognized? And that has gone up this year, even without our final spring semester kind of things coming in. Baseball still has a couple things out, as well as soccer. So for myself, and looking at this, both myself and Mr. Siegel, our assistant AD, we graded last year in the excellent category. With those increase in participations or increase in recognition with our students, and then having some great success in the postseason with a state championship in baseball, a state championship in prose reading and speech, and a few runners-up in wrestling, theater, individuals runners-up, and speech and debate. Overall, it was a phenomenal year for Excelsior Springs Tigers and our extracurricular and co-curricular program. Just as I kind of spoke, and I remember last time I did this, there were some questions on how many dual participants that we have and kind of who dual sport type individuals. So I had an opportunity to look at that and find those actually this year. Across the board, we had 277 kids that participated in multiple activities out of our 1,200. So that's about 15-17%, which was pretty good. Honestly, it's a lot lower than I thought it was, which is good to see. That does include individuals that participated in athletics and activities, especially at the mission level. If we remove music activities, that drops about 43 kids. So instead of going 277, now we're 235. All right. Just a few different things as we look at kind of the program in general. I kind of jumped ahead of myself there. Our opportunity, our goals and objectives is to provide opportunities, experiences for our kids, and something that goes beyond the classroom. That is giving respect to themselves and others, the ability to positively take risks, both with their efforts and their blood, sweat, and tears and time, appreciate for their own talents and weaknesses, recognizing their own values, but that are physical, academic, and aesthetics. Understanding teamwork and sharing common goals, and then realizing the importance of life skills that we grow and develop through our extracurricular activities. Along with those participation numbers and our students that are recognized, we actually had 14 students that were Black E letter winners, were individuals who earned Black E is 3 letters in 1 year. So that we had 14 of those this past year, and we also had 14 that received our Gold E plaques, or individuals who earned 6 letters in a 4-year span. So showing that our kids are participating in a lot of things, and not just participating, but as I kind of alluded to earlier, also having very great success in those as well. As far as our conference, district, and state recognitions, we had a few team conference champions: girls tennis, speech and debate, boys soccer. Our academic team and boys tennis were all conference champions this year. Okay. We had individuals champions. We had 6 individual track and field champions, 2 individual speech and debate champions at the, 1 boys golf conference champ, and then we had 95 students receive all conference honors. That is 22 more students that we had last year. At the district level, speech, baseball, academic team, we had 2 individual speech and debate district champions, and theater was also a district champion, one that we were able to host, which was kind of nice, but then made it a little crazy when we tried to get down to state. That's later on. We had a couple runners up as well with our debate and boys soccer. Fine arts, our fine art departments, district band and choir earned excellent ratings at districts. Our mixed choir earned an outstanding rating. And then we go to our state recognition. We had, like I said earlier, we had 2 state champions, our prose reading and our baseball. In track and field, we had several throwers and some other field event individuals place in top 8, which made them all state. A 3rd and 4th in javelin, a 7th in shot, 7th in disc, 3rd in long jump, and we also had 2 additional state qualifiers. Our one act was a runner-up which is something that I got to be a part of, good and bad. What I mean by good is that I got to drive the set down there and watch the kids perform and be a part of it and be around them. And a day of adversity was presented to our kids, both from several different aspects. But they had to go perform on a Wednesday night and then turn around, figure out or find out that they had to perform Thursday morning at 9 a.m. and someone had lost a key to the U-Haul and we couldn't find it, so we had to get it all. And thankfully, Misha worked with us to adjust our ability to participate. Then they go out there and get second. I mean, it was just a phenomenal day for them and their ability to kind of roll with the things and deal with drama, although that's kind of their forte, but deal with drama. And it was just awesome to be a part of and be around, to be honest with you. Girls wrestling, we had 3 qualifiers and actually had a placer this year. Boys wrestling, we had 5 with 3 medalists, a runner-up and 2/3. Speech and debate had several individuals that ended up a first or a second at the state, second, third, or fourth at the state level. Our Tigerettes this year got first in hip hop at their state competition and a second in mixed with a 5th overall placing. From my understanding, that has not happened for quite some time, and I can't find a plaque that says otherwise. Like I said, theater, we had 2nd overall to finish, and we had our outstanding actress and outstanding supporting actress that was given by the Theater Teachers Association there at the state event, which was awesome to see. And then our academics overall, boys wrestling, outside of boys wrestling, all of our teams earned at least a distinguished or outstanding achievement for their academics as well as their athletics. Last one, boys, we did have an 8th placer at the state golf meet and Sedalia. So with all that being said, we're incredibly proud of our accomplishments, of our students, staff, and our sponsors and coaches. Their commitment to excellence continues to bring pride to not only our school, but our community. As we move into the new school year, we have a lot of exciting new changes. One being we have 5 new coaches that are on board with us this year. Cheer, boys basketball, girls basketball, boys wrestling, and softball. We are looking to add some streaming options for our community, especially in our Fine Arts Center. I had a conversation with Huddle today about putting a focus camera in the Fine Arts so we can have people see their 2nd grade Cornerstone program or other things that they're not able to attend but able to stream. Well, we could do that through Huddle. It's pretty seamless, but it's a pretty nice opportunity.
I think we've had initial conversations with someone about basketball too, haven't we?
So we have some alternate things about basketball angles. We're adding a couple other ones, and baseball and softball will actually have cameras there as well to be able to stream those. We've ran into last year some of the camera design that Huddles present we weren't feasible to be able to do that. They needed a hardwire Wi-Fi connection. It cost us, I think, $6,000 to run it from the Career Center all the way out to baseball field, so it's not feasible. But now they have point-to-point cameras that all we got to do is plug it in, and so we'll be able to use that at softball and baseball as well. And then last but not least, other things we're looking forward to but coming up in the new year is working with our community to recruit some usage that's been on our fields for quite some time. If you go by the high school at any point in time, especially in the spring, and those fields are being used by our community, and that's definitely what we want and what we need for our continued success. We're looking at recouping some of the usage that gets made to our fields to be able to continue to maintain those. So that's something that we'll be looking forward in the future.
So just to follow up on that a little, because I know we talked about possibly presenting that next month.
Yeah.
Right. So something that Doug and I have been looking at the last 2 or 3 years, I know Mr. Gilkey's been working out with Mr. Baker, is just our field rental usage agreements and then usage costs, to be quite honest. Doug, do you remember the numbers running it, the field usage and our
So we have 1,850 hours per year that we receive, I wouldn't say compensation, but that we have uses on our field from our community. Mm-hmm. And that does not include our Parks and Rec, that does not include football with ESFA, and that does not include youth wrestling.
Right, so what we've been looking at is that's a lot of usage on our turf, and it's eating into the life of the turf. If you have kids that go to the turf, there's seams, and that's part of this deferred maintenance that we're going through. So Mr. Baker, over the last year, since he took the job, is the first thing I talked to him about, was we really need to look at what other schools are around us doing to try and mitigate and recoup some of that loss of that. And it's not to be a money maker, it's really to be able to try and make sure we're keeping our facilities where they need to be with usage. It also helps with some of the arguments you get out there when you start having a schedule. You can sign up for things, and so we still want to keep our good relationship and the priority to local teams, with our community center teams and Parks and Rec and our youth teams, but there will be some costs there that he's looking at. He's looking at aligning that, seeing what other communities do, and then rolling that out. And I think we're looking at trying to get a presentation for you next month to approve that, but just wanted to plant that seed for you. It's something he's done a good job working on, but it's something we need just with the usage that's going on out there. The turf's not getting cheaper, so, and neither are the lights. So we're working from that together and present it for you guys.
To finalize out kind of my presentation here, and thank you guys for listening. You know, our strengths of our program, we got some great kids. We have some great sponsors and coaches, and we have great support from our community. And we will continue to do the things that support all those aspects, and yet continue to try to gain some student success both on and off our fields and courts. One concern as we continue to move forward, always with anything, is specialization, especially in a school of our size. We're not a big school, we're definitely not a small school, but using our students and coaches and sponsors' talents and abilities, and growing those and fostering those is kind of the goal. And it's hard to do that when we have individuals trying to stick to one thing. I know that's been a push from a lot of people in a lot of different areas, not necessarily here, but outside world. And I think it's a detriment to a student and their opportunity to find success. I know there's a lot of kids who will late in life jump into something. I know might not necessarily here, but I had a kid that I used to coach. I don't like this, and then showed up for track his senior year, ended up going to state and getting a scholarship, and jumped 3 years at Lindenwood University. That's what the non-specialization does. So that's something that we're always combat. We always try to highlight those individuals with the Black E, the Gold E plaques, just to not only recognize them, but say thank you for continuing to put your effort and value into Excelsior Springs High School. We'll continue to look at our numbers of our participants and see if we need additional staffing. Right now we're okay across the board, and evaluating those we'll bring those recommendations to the board. I will continue to evaluate that compared to our other schools and our conference and districts. We'll continue to invest in our athletic development programs and work towards future implementing throughout the secondary schools. I know the middle school is starting to take on some weightlifting programs and athletic development programs there at the middle schools. Would be nice. And we'll continue to seek out appropriate professional development for our coaches and sponsors through various avenues.
All right. That's a lot.
That was a lot. I talk fast, so I apologize.
That's okay.
At this time, I would request that the board approve the co-curricular and extracurricular program as presented.
All right, I'd entertain a motion to approve the co-curricular and extracurricular program evaluation as presented.
So,
First by Darren, second by Jill. Questions, comments for Mr. Baker?
I don't have a question, but I did want to acknowledge that you guys also did roll out your new scheduling program.
And that's been nice.
And
It's been good.
It was like from a user perspective of the community who has used the program, I think that it is so great, and I hope that it relieves a little bit of pressure from the office on your guys' side of trying to keep track of that.
Absolutely, a whole lot. And I tell you, it's been nice to work with the community members, and it's a new thing for us. I know it's been a new thing for our teams and people, and it's been awesome to see. It's been kind of spitting out like Porky Pig here. It relieves a lot of the stress, and I know that was kind of one of the things when we looked at addressing our facility usage outside of school hours. It was a little overwhelming. Everybody just kind of shows up and kind of does their thing, and trying to get people aligned to being cordial towards each other and using our facilities for what they should be and how they should be used. It was stressful, but I tell you what, our people have been phenomenal, amazing, and it's been great to see and great to work with, and we look forward to continuing to do that. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Thanks for the hard work.
I'm just a small piece. A lot of other people do a lot more of the work than I do. I just try to keep it going in the right direction. But thank you.
All right, hearing no further discussion or questions, all those in approval? That passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Next up is the CSIP academic update. Dr. Miller.
Thank you. So really, as you guys remember, I think in December, I presented a 90-day plan as a direct result of our APR. And so this update is just all about how that plan worked out. So wanted to start out with the goals of the 90-day plan. Our focus, and really what I want to say is it focused on high leverage things that make the biggest impact in the shortest amount of time based on where we were at. The worst part about my job is that you don't get evidence on how you did the year before until the middle of the next year. So I think we were a little over a third of the way done with the year when we got the results. And ordinarily, I take great pride in getting as much input as I possibly can, going to administrators, going to teachers. And in that situation, when time is that critical, I just stopped everything I was doing, worked 2 weeks straight, and came up with this 90-day plan to try to get the biggest bang for our buck before the kids had to reassess for that year. So we needed to improve assessment practices. What we had seen was that our assessments weren't, in some cases, aligned or rigorous, so we really focused on that. We wanted to strengthen our PLCs. That's when teachers get together and talk about student success and what can we do if they're struggling. Increased principal support to teachers. A lot of times we can just say teachers need to do this without identifying what the principal's role is and helping them do that. And of course, target student interventions was really the main goals. That's the highest leverage impact that you can make. So the things that happened in the 90-day plan were to directly impact those things. I just want to say before I get started that this was not a plan in any way that sat on a shelf after I introduced it to principals. I think I will sum up this plan on the last slide as well as saying I handed this over to principals and they presented it to teachers, and just without hesitation they hit the ground running and did the best thing that they possibly could for our kids. So I can't say thank you enough for, I mean, it was just never questioned. This is what our kids need, and they did it. So could not have happened without principals and the work of the teachers. So the first thing, again, we wanted to address assessments. And I had this really separated into phase 1 and phase 2, just to keep the bites more manageable. And when you give somebody 6 points to focus on, you don't want them to focus on the things that, you know, there's a hierarchy of the most impact to the least impact. So assessments, when you look at research, is really the greatest impact that you can make, especially in a short amount of time. What we were seeing, and I think you guys have heard me say this, is that our students do substantially better on STAR assessments and it's a good predictor of our MAP scores, but then they get to the MAP assessment and for whatever reason, they're not scoring as well on the MAP or the EOC as they are on those STAR assessments. So one of the things that we tried to do was create a MAP or EOC type environment so that when they got to the MAP and the EOC test, it wouldn't be so stressful and heightened anxiety. So you'll see like a running theme on, we were really trying to make the environment better, make them better prepared, and I'll go over that kind of one by one. So I had what I determined as moves, meaning these are the things that we're going to do. The first thing we did was create an assessment calendar. We have one in place for like the big assessments, our district benchmarks, MAP, EOC. But what I had principals do was ask teachers, okay, 3rd grade, I want to know when you were assessing on these standards, so that because we've identified them as a priority and we're going to go back and reassess kids or make it so that they fully understand these priority things. So they had that available on a calendar, and that helps keep everyone aligned so nobody kind of flies off and is 3 weeks behind or 2 weeks behind. And the teachers did an outstanding job. We created a protocol for unpacking a question. What we had seen was that test fatigue is a real thing, like you get tired of taking tests. But in addition, like one of the things that we weren't addressing is that kids just give up immediately if they think they have no idea about a question, or if they don't know the answer right away, they were just guessing. So we came up with a protocol that was specifically to address, here's what you do step by step when you get to a question that you fully don't know the answer to, run through these steps. And it kind of makes even if you have to make a guess, it makes it easier. We've all played this game if you went to college, like which is the one you throw out, and yeah, always and never throw those out. So it was kind of that, but really focused more on at that grade level. Every K-12 building adopted that, which made it super easy for me. We added STAR assessment at the high school. I didn't have a way, and the high school really didn't have a way of, in the middle of the year or at any given time, being able to tell how well their kids were doing at algebra. So that STAR assessment gave them an opportunity to assess the kids at the beginning, identify specifically like what goals or what standards they were missing, and then be able to focus on those, which was another thing that was a big topic. We added, as you know, IXL, and that covered grades K through 12. So even in the grades, we tend to focus on grades 3 through 5 at the elementary level because they're assessed and they're tested. We decided to adopt it from K all the way up to through high school. There are a lot of things that IXLs really provided, so the teachers didn't have to lift that heavy load of going in and choosing strategies, taking the time to put kids in interventions. So that was one of the things that we did. We needed to retest students for clean data so that at the beginning of the year, we gave every kid a baseline test to determine immediately, like, here's where they are right now. This is silly, but one thing that we had to put in place, we made sure that every single student took the test. You would be surprised how many kids were absent that day, and when you would go back, there would be several tests missing on kids where teachers weren't being able to identify it. So as a teacher, you run out of time to do the things that you had done with kids 3 days ago. And so after a while, it's just hard to go back and pin a kid down sometimes, especially at the high school level, to reassess and do those things because you're trying to teach at the same time. We implemented MAP and EOC test-like questions. So what we found was that our assessment questions were a lot easier than what they were experiencing on MAP and EOC questions. So once a week, teachers guided students through these MAP and EOC type questions that were created by our instructional coaches. It was so funny too, because the principals immediately wanted the answers in that. I'm like, you will not collect data on the answers and if they mastered it. It drove them nuts. I'm like, I don't care about the answer and I don't care. This is solely to give them the experience of difficult higher order thinking type questions that really need to be rigorously taught so they have that deeper understanding. And they use those MAP and EOC type questions to run through the RELAX protocol. And what we found, which was fascinating, I heard this from all of the principals, we would present that question and the teachers would say there's no way that the kids are going to know this, and the kids were knowing it, like running through the program. So that's one of the things that came out of it, is our kids were capable of more than what we thought they were capable, so that was great. We also, of course, anytime that you're trying to impact student achievement, you focus on targeted interventions, and I'll talk a little bit more about how we did that. So on the left here, I'll be honest with you, I made this up. Like, I knew that I wanted like a protocol to make it easier for teachers to teach. Looked at best practices when you're answering a difficult question. And again, if you've gone to college or prepped for the ACT, these are all strategies that we've been taught on, how to tackle a question when you don't know the answer. But we made posters, and this was hung in every single classroom. This is one of the things that we got a ton of feedback that the teachers really, really liked. I think anytime that you can take something off the plate of a teacher and say, here's a protocol that we're adopting, try this out. I think that what we saw with this 90-day plan was a lot of those things, they were just like, thank you, and it's working really well so that they could really focus on what they needed to focus on. And of course, IXL learning on the right there, that's an example of the data that we can pull in real time on any building. You can pull student data, but it will show you how many questions that they've answered, and that's just in the last 30 days on one student in particular. It'll tell you how many hours they've spent. This is this is by building. And they will tell you like how many students, like how many skills students have mastered. So if you look down at the very bottom, you're not supposed to see it, but that ring really talks about how much practice they're spending on certain things. So you can, if a kid is struggling with fractions, you can pick specific standards and assign those to kids so that they can master fractions. Over to the right, you're not supposed to see that either, but that's just to give you a glimpse of, these are different days, and the blue part is how much students were working at home. So not only were the students diving in and working, like using their class time in some of that time that was opposite, like when a teacher was working with a small group of students, before I would walk in and it was concerning that kids would be looking for a book to read a lot of the time opposite of the teacher. They were spending hours just looking for a book to read. So this was really productively using that time with IXL. So APR movers, again, was the first part. We had teachers identify the kids that were just on the cusp of either moving from proficient to advanced or below basic to basic, because some of them were just right on the line. They focused on those kids and identified those kids and really assigned skills specifically to them to try to get them to move from one level to the other. If you've spoken to me at all about personal philosophy, I don't ever want to create test takers. Like, they're kids and I want them to have a good solid education. Unfortunately, under these circumstances, we are graded by how a kid performs on one test a year. So prioritizing that kind of felt dirty at the time, because I preached to all of the teachers that give a kid a good education, make them smarter, follow your standards, do what you need to do. But it doesn't matter what a kid scores on a test. It's about what you're seeing in a classroom, how well they can do it. And I kind of I apologized to the principals and I said, I know this goes against everything I believe in, but this is showing us that our kids need some extra support, so we're going to respond to this assessment in a way that supports our kids and our teachers. The mover moves that we went through, we utilized assessment tools to predict mastery and identify gaps. How we did that was specifically with IXL. We looked at current interventions for each of these students. One of the things that I really push principals, and well, specifically principals, is they will tell me this kid has been doing this small intervention. They've been in this particular, whatever it is, intervention where they're pulled out and a specials teacher is working with them on phonics. They've been doing it for 3 years. My question always is it working? And they're like, no, but it's really like a good support for them and it's not gonna hurt anything. Like, no, let's really focus on what they're doing and determine if it's helping and get them in the most focused intervention that's gonna move the kid. Extra practice is great, but I think for teachers and for students, if you can just get me to the information to make me better as fast as I can, that's the route to take. So we really focused in on that. We created targeted small group interventions for the students that were currently in interventions and those that we identified that needed those interventions. Again, IXL was incredible. They identify the skills in that immediately in real time. So teachers were originally having to go through, look at data, highlight kids, determining what groups they wanted to do it in. And IXL not only identifies those kids, but with a push of a button, a teacher can assign them skills to work on so that they can focus more on those small group interventions. We utilized 2 to 3 day micro interventions with these movers. And what I mean by that is that I know when I first got here 6 years ago, we would have interventions in place that were taking 4 weeks. And then we'll reevaluate after 4 weeks to see like if they need more intervention. And much like classroom teaching, you have to assess a kid more than that to make sure you still have them on board. So 4 weeks was far too much time and they were working on the same skill for 4 weeks. So we focused it down. I told them focus on 2 to 3 days max of getting them as much skills as you possibly can. Once they show you that they're proficient in that skill, then immediately move on to the next skill and make sure that they're proficient. But kids were, you can see by the chart that I showed you previously, they were doing a lot of this work on their own, which was great. So after the 2 to 3 day, again, they moved on to the next intervention. So we were, I think, moving quicker than we ever have before. So this is still phase 1. Talk to principals a lot about principal support, meaning how are we going to support teachers through this. The principal moves specifically were go in and look for bell-to-bell teaching. That wasn't, we just had to have some non-negotiables on if you see a teacher that's struggling with this, you are supposed to go in and give them support. What can I do to help you? Can I send an instructional coach in? What do we need to do? Bell-to-bell teaching is just critical. We have a shortened calendar here in the district. We go fewer days than anyone else around us. So I tell teachers and principals all the time, we can't afford to lose any minutes here. We're already shortened as much as we can. So look for bell-to-bell teaching. They were to create a walkthrough schedule. If they didn't create a schedule, walkthroughs and visiting classrooms is the first thing to fall off of your plate. It just is as an administrator. So they specifically were with their teams, like the high school made all of the administrators and walking through classrooms, they mapped it out. I know they did the same thing in every building. So it was super intentional. Ensure district curriculum is being followed. I didn't give that a check mark. That was the one that we really struggled with, and I think a big focus of mine with the administrators moving forward. What I realized quickly is that principals just can't know all of the standards. So it's like in elementary, you figure they're doing every subject in 6 different grade levels. So a lot of times they were walking in, and I think how they were measuring are the kids nailing it was, you know, this looks like math to me. And so one of the things we're focused on, and it was a big focus in the academic boot camp that we did, was recognizing good teaching and supporting that and praising that when they see it. So instead of saying things like, your kids look really happy and engaged, saying like, I love the question that you asked, and that really made them think deeply. And so really supporting the things that we're focused on. Not that a teacher deserves to not be praised for all of that stuff, but I think really it puts the pressure on principals to know what to look for before they walk into a classroom. So we're going to do a better job as an administrative team to really have some questions beforehand. Or to have some look-fors. Review the curriculum and go, okay, here's what I'm walking into. We have a scope and sequence, so it's fairly easy for an administrator to look in and be like, okay, these are the standards they should be covering. That way, I think principals are intimidated walking in and speaking directly to somebody's teaching when they don't know what they're supposed to be teaching at any given time. So we're going to do a better job as an administrative team, really focusing on how to get kids into that deep thinking. Some more that we accomplished under principal moves, another non-negotiable was that every classroom was giving an exit ticket. What an exit ticket is it's a short question about what you taught that day, and that's data for should I move on or should I cover that thing, the same topic in the following day. We were using PLT time. Again, we created a data protocol which worked really well and made it consistent, I think, in every building. These are the look-fors and the things that you should be doing with your PLC time. So phase 2, or the last half of the 90-day plan, I called it the APR sprint because at this point, it's spring break-ish and it's right around the corner, and so we really had to focus. There were some PLC moves. Just to clarify, our PLC time again is, those are those one plan periods, or the time that teachers come together and collaborate over data, over what's happening in their classrooms. So that's during the day time. So what was happening was, during the PLC time, we had protocols to support it, but the expectation was that people were creating weekly student goals. So rather than following the standards in sequential order, which I think we did a great job of, they set goals for their kids on a weekly basis. So again, shortening so that the focus was smaller at that given time, I think it made it more manageable. Again, I have an IXL logo here because that basically took care of that for teachers. Focus on 1 or 2 standards a week, both IXL and the STAR assessment. The issue with the STAR assessment is they only take it 3 to 4 times a year on any given subject. So that's not enough information to make quick changes instructionally, but IXL can give you that updated whenever you choose to run it. So we were focusing on 1 or 2 standards. Again, go smaller, go more focused, and that made it, I think, easier to feel the growth and see what your kids were capable of doing. We continued formative quick checks, which is, again, are those daily checks. We created a student sprint intervention schedule. So at this point, we're halfway through. We can look at IXL, we can look on the work that students have been doing up at this point, and teachers were giving students specific interventions to move them forward. A lot of teachers used IXL, a lot of teachers used their small group instruction just to do what they've always done really well, which is work on specific skills with their kids. Again, I can't say enough. We used a short MAP or EOC-like practice routine. What that looked like was, it was a weekly, big, heavy question. One of the, I think, the most powerful things that we did at Academic Boot Camp this year was I put a standard on the board about science, and I said, how would you go about teaching this? Or when you walked in a classroom, what would you expect to see? And I think it was on like the parts of a plant, which was a 4th grade standard. And they shot out some things, and I said, here's an actual question on the map. And it was like, as an adult, it took some thinking about. It was a 4th grade question, but that's really what we're trying to prepare kids for. I had probably more feedback on how much the teachers liked the MAP and EOC type question than anything else. Like they really, really enjoyed having it. Number one, it was pre-prepared for them by the instructional coaches. And it went through a protocol that everybody was doing. So it worked out very well. We were to collect student data on standards that weren't mastered so that we could target those, and trends on learning needs. Do we need to go back and reteach some things in the last 2 or 3 months? And we, of course, adjusted intervention groups as needed. Again, all of those were done with the help of IXL. One of the things that came out of it that actually was amazing was the strengthening of collaboration between our teachers during our PLC time. The conversations were just more focused on student learning. Like I would hear several time conversations about, I have 5 kids out of the 25 kids that mastered this and the rest of them are not. Like, what are you doing, or what can I do better? So I think collaboration overall, IXL was a huge part of that because it took care of the data for a teacher so they could have those weekly conversations. Like I said, staff feedback, administrative feedback, I can't thank everybody on board enough for just doing the work. So it was really huge. I appreciate that. I want to talk about some obstacles, and these were obstacles during those 90 days as well as moving forward. I always try to be completely transparent with the board on the obstacles that are kind of out of control, but something that I face that makes a big impact. I would say number 1 is student attendance. If a kid's not here, they can't learn anything. I don't know if you ever, as a kid, had a week off of school and a teacher sent you some worksheets home, but you were completely lost when you went back after a week. So the attendance obstacles, teachers can only impact learning when students are present. You just have to be there. So when a kid isn't there, the likelihood that they're going to require interventions goes up, and that's more stress on a teacher. Attendance is probably the strongest predictor on if a kid is going to be successful. A kid that doesn't show up to school can't do the learning, and they are not as successful. It's a huge predictor. We can overall provide the best instruction, interventions, and support, but students have to be in school. That's as simple as it is. I wanted to share a few numbers with you. I went through and had Misty pull a report for me on attendance. These are students who missed more than 17 days, which is the requirement for us to meet our 90-90 that you've heard us talk about. The high school had 202 students that were gone more than 17 days. The middle school had 95 students that were gone more than 17 days. Cornerstone had 51 students, and they have a star because they were one of the few schools that met their 90. They worked really hard and did an outstanding job, so I do want to point that out. Lewis Elementary had 53 students that were missing more than 17 days. Elkhorn had 37 students, many of which were from sometimes if you have a family of 5 that don't come, all 5 of them don't come. The Career Center had 11 students. I think that Mr. Ruby has collected data, and I think, what is the school, Mr. Ruby, where you have the lowest attendance? Excelsior Springs, out of all the schools that go to the Career Center, has the lowest attendance at the Career Center. Down there. Yeah. The Early Childhood Center has 64 kids that don't show up they're sick all the time, and but they have 64 kids that missed more than 17 days. Job Corps does not have 98 students. That's what they scored on their 90-90 report. They have 98.1% attendance. Job Corps has 98.1% attendance. That adds to our attendance as a district, and so without the Job Corps, our attendance would be significantly worse. In total, 502 students miss more than 17 days a year. That's a couple days short of the month of February. So 502 kids are missing basically a month of school. So I just wanted to point that out, because when you look at the actual numbers, it makes a difference. 90%, it's easy to say, well, 90% of the kids are going to be there, and 502 kids are missing a substantial amount of school that is impacting their learning.
Do you think that's worse this year? Is it trending worse?
I will tell you, I know that you had asked me about academic trends. I have all that information, and you can pull it on DESE. Next month, I had several really good questions about data specific, like where we started the year and where we ended it. Honestly, the amount of things on the agenda, I tried to keep this focused to the 90 days.
I just didn't know if you
No,
would say
I'll tell you,
it feels like it. Or
I want to be able to give you guys those numbers in July, but I do want to speak to that I know Dr. Everett and I were speaking on the high school specifically. She had attendance in the 90s, and I think it's dropped significantly. I want to say it's 79, 82-ish, around like that. So the trends are going down. I know that we very strictly, I think they still have a policy on tying attendance to credits. So that's a conversation, I think, moving forward, but attendance is definitely an issue. It depends on the building. I will say buildings trend upwards and down. You can prize kids to death for showing up to school, but really it's the 10% of them or the 15% of them that really need the attention of getting to school. The next obstacle, and I think you've heard me mention this a lot, is staff turnover. Every time a staff member leaves, training efforts, we have to start over. New teachers require support. We've added an additional day for classroom management. I will say that the addition of that, I think from what the feedback I heard from principals made a huge difference. I think we have far less teachers struggle with classroom management, and that's the #1 way to lose a teacher. Districts, I can't speak to this enough. When you have a teacher for 2 to 3 years and you send them to letters and you send them to professional development and you provide professional development and you provide the training and you go through the hard things and you build them up and they leave, you start over. It's an issue. So I know every district is going through the same thing. There just aren't enough teachers to teach. But that definitely is something that's on my mind moving forward, is staff turnover always scares me. Come on, mouse. Here we go. Areas of success. We increased by far the use of data to drive instruction. Like I said, during PLC times, teachers are actually required to bring data, required to bring student work, and they're speaking to that to make changes in real time. There's stronger alignment between professional development and district goals. Classroom management, I would say, is better for all of our new staff. Strong professional development for our staff. I know I rave about our professional development. It's outstanding. Really just overall greater consistency in assessment practices. I can't state this enough that we focused on systems. We didn't focus on focusing on 2 or 3 kids. We focused on systems to address the big issues that we were seeing. So like systems around what a PLC meeting looks like, systems around what critical thinking and deep thinking looks like. We will continue, you will see when I have moving forward, the word continue comes up over and over and over again. These are solid practices that impact structures to give us the biggest bang for our buck as far as how you use your time with students. I think teachers become frustrated and overworked and discouraged when they feel like there's too much that they have to cover. And the answer to that is always focus. And it's really, really hard because you want to cover everything, but there's just not enough time. And what I have learned is teachers are really bad about kicking things off of their plate. They want to, but they want to do what's best for kids. And so it's hard to tell them to stop doing practices that could potentially pay off and really focus on the ones that are research-based. This is the best thing to focus on right now. So I think that got better this year and really helped. Again, moving forward, you'll see the word continue on here because all of those systems are remaining in place. There's nothing new that will come to teachers. IXL will come, they'll be formally trained because honestly we implemented it and I had teachers try it out and the feedback I got from them, they loved it. I've got one teacher at Lewis that I think probably should be a rep and be paid. She'd do commercials for them. So moving forward, continuing the work from the 90-day plan, those are systems. Continuing to strengthen our PLC work. Again, we started the work, it's not done, but the teachers are doing an incredible job. Continue supporting staff needs and improving teacher retention. Aligning PD to the new CSIP. I am happy to say that the curriculum instruction portion of the CSIP was led by the great Dr. Jill Comstock and Dr. Manning. And they are focused on the things that make the biggest impact. And so I'm just thrilled and happy to continue the work that they did on the CSIP. Develop teacher leaders. There's one thing that we are trying is we recognize that teachers are wanting that administrative experience or that leadership experience for those of them that want to grow. And so just to use an example, one of the things that I will do, I will have special projects that I'm going to basically ask teachers if they would like to step on board and do these special projects. The first example I can give you is I have what's called a curriculum coordinator. It's a fancy name that I ChatGPT because I wanted it to sound good on a resume. But really it's just making sure that the curriculum is in line and the right people have access to the right curriculum. But it also is something that's going to build leadership capacity that's special for me. continue using assessment data to guide instruction. A lot of PLC time was really focused on the behavior of kids in classroom, things that teachers were struggling with, which are all valid things, but I think the work really with that protocol is focused on the data and moving the needle as much as you can. I will say, I told you I was going to wrap up with this because I am so proud. The 90-day plan united teachers and principals across the district around a shared purpose, and that's exactly what it did, ensuring every student receives the support needed to succeed. I will say everyone's focus was on kids. I'm really proud of that, and I look forward to continuing that work.
All right, thank you very much. Questions, comments?
I like how she stressed the word continue, because I think practices like this have been done in the past. When I look back to experience in the classroom, we did these type of things, and that's when we saw growth with our students. So I like how you said continue, 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 without a lot of new things, which I think will be music to our teachers' ears. Let's get really good at instruction and looking at that data to move our kids. So, nice work. Nice work, teachers, too. And students. That's what I want to hear about. I want to hear how, in July, how our students grew through this process, too.
And principals, like leading the charge. Sure. Did a great job.
Sure. Good job.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Dr. Miller. Appreciate it. Next up is the approval of the IXL contract. Dr. Miller.
So I pretty much sold this during the last thing here. I went to Dr. Bullmore and said, this is what we need to do. I have talked these people into giving this to me for free. So during the last semester, we had it all for free. They restricted a lot of the people that we had, and I went back to them and said, boy, teachers would really like to participate in this, and she just kept giving me additional licenses. I think I've told Dr. Bullmore this is the best rep I've ever worked with, was with this program. She's just super helpful. I went to him and said, this is expensive, and he was like, well, we're gonna have to squeeze every penny. And so I went through every line item with my assistant, and we looked at what was focused on kids and what was focused on stuff that didn't matter. And we came up with enough money to be able to afford this, and I still was able to cut, I think, 17% off of my overall budget. So some of the programs that we had to get rid of were nice, but the majority of them, IXL was capable of doing what that program was doing anyway. So I do want to clarify that it's initially very expensive. 1 out of 4 kids in the nation is on IXL. So they know what they're doing as far as standards. The first year is the most expensive, and so the next 2 on the 3-year contracts, so year 2 and year 3, you're paying about half of what you were on the first year. So I'll take any questions, but I am going to recommend to the board that we approve the contract to purchase IXL.
All right, I'd entertain a motion to approve the IXL contract as presented.
So moved.
First by Darren,
Second, can you scroll back down?
second by Kaylin.
Thank you.
This? Yeah.
Questions, comments?
I'm going to show you. Here is the dates and where it outlines like the total cost. So this year will be $87,700, which again I came up with squeezing the pennies together. And then after that, it's a little bit more manageable.
If you have, this is just a question I have.
Yeah.
If you have a student that moves in from another district that was using IXL, will that data then transfer with them when they enter our district?
So I don't believe that you can take information from one district computer-wise, but a teacher can go in and request the standards they were working on in the time and kind of build that out. I don't know the answer to that, whether you can or where you can't.
That'd be great,
But
though.
worst case
I'm just
scenario,
wondering.
Worst case scenario, a teacher can give them initial assessment, and it's going to tell you where the kids should be anyway. Yeah. The state requires, I don't know if you know this, any kid that moves into our district that is between kindergarten and I think 5th grade now, I know between kindergarten and 3rd grade, they're required to take the STAR assessment the moment that they move in. Kindergartners are required to take a kindergarten assessment. So this is a good time for me to mention to the board that I have not added anything new to the plate. We are going to focus on what matters. The state, however, reserves the right to make us do whatever they want. I will tell you that they are already, I've seen them triple the amount of testing that's required for dyslexia, where every student will be tested 3 times a year instead of the 1 time a year. So those are things that I have to comply with. So if you're hearing we have to do all of this testing, the majority of the time, specifically anything associated with you know, the literacy plan that came out, a lot of it is state mandated that I have to do. And for years, I tried to fudge numbers and take as much as I could off of the teacher's plate. A lot of the, I joke with Lisa, a lot of the legislation my first 2 years, she would send out board document changes, like because this law passed, none of them were about me. I would say half of them are about me now. Just on the changes, politicians like to stick their nose in curriculum right now, so.
I think it's really hard to, I understand that it's education, it's how budgeting and education works, but it's really hard to continue to say, like, to continue to approve funding requests when we don't even know where we're landing. But I also understand that some of it's just timing and the way that it has. It's just the
What do
way
you mean
that
by we don't know where we're landing?
we haven't received all of our year-end budget, you know, where we're at for our final year for this year to know, like, okay, what modifications are we going to need to make for next year? And I understand that you replaced other things that you have right now, but we also don't know that maybe it would have needed to be cut a little bit more. We don't really know. We're waiting for the final numbers to come in. But I also understand that's education. So the one thing that I love about it is the teachers that I have spoken to about it, like, what do you think? Every single one of them loves IXL.
It takes a lot of work.
My student liked IXL. I think there was a little bit of like gamification for him on like just trying to get done because it kept giving him new, and he started to figure out like I must not have gotten it right because it gave me a similar, you know, question back. So he started figuring that out too. But one of the things that we did hear from teachers a lot in the past was the data collection, the data entry, the putting it into like Google Sheets, and the data that they had, the work they had to do and the lift on that. I'm hoping that you'll say that this is going to replace that and they no longer have to do all of those things anymore.
I think like in my whole presentation I said like literally put in a sticker because I wanted you guys to see those were all things that were easily done by teachers because IXL could kind of fill in that gap.
That's so great.
I'm not going to tell you they're never going to have to collect their own data because I know better. I don't want to present you. There are just times when you are going to have to compile some things as a teacher, specifically like grade card time. IXL isn't going to spit out a grade. You're going to have to collect some data and do that.
But it's really the assessments that we were hearing more about, like the reassessment and then the entering it, and then the reassess and the entering it. This seems like that replaces that.
Absolutely, it does. One of the goals is to focus on assessments for teachers. I want them to be able to create their own common assessments and write solid test questions that are in that deep thinking that our students are asked to do on the MAP and EOC. I also can tell you that I got the biggest relief sigh from every teacher when I said the instructional coaches are going to do this for you. I mean, we were just slammed, and I wanted to keep them focused on student learning. But I can't tell you that there won't be times when they have to collect data, but I can tell you that every teacher is thrilled with what this can do that saves them a ton of time.
All right, any other questions? Comments? And the 87,000, I'm assuming, was in your budget already.
Correct.
Okay. Just making sure it wasn't new on top.
It wasn't in the budget, but now it's in the budget.
Yeah. Well,
It's
the
not
budget
in
we
addition.
approved. Yeah.
It's not in addition.
No, exactly. That's what I mean. Yeah.
It's like I'm having a conversation with Charlie. This was like returning clothes and buying clothes with the clothes you return does not count as spending. Yeah.
But it does.
No, it does not.
All right. No further questions. All those in favor? And that passes 7-0. All right, last item. Mr. Gilkey, you're up for approval of the 26-27 career ladder plan update.
Okay, if you remember, I believe in April we passed or approved the 26-27 career ladder, just based on timeline for DESI, we have to have that submitted. Working through with the committee, there were a couple of things that were brought up. The one that really kind of stuck that then is a recommended change. There's some questions about how student groups are selected for teachers when it comes to the hours that they're putting in, and some concerns about if teachers could be too selective, but we also have groups at the high school level that you may be using career ladder hours for a group that has to, for individuals that have to try out. So we just put in some language that said that student groups need to be open to all students. If they do need to be restricted based on size or anything like that, that there needs to be an objective process that individuals are following, and kind of gives a couple of examples of things that a sponsor could do to limit the number of students, whether that's a lottery system or a tryout or a rubric, but just making sure that teachers understand that you can't just handpick a group of kids for a club that you want to have. So there were some concerns brought up about that, so that's the additional language. Otherwise, there wasn't, again, much feedback from the there wasn't feedback from the building reps about other things that needed substantial changes. So.
All right. Entertain a motion to approve the updated 26-27 career ladder plan.
So moved.
First by Tracy, second by Jill. Questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor? And that passes 7-0. All right. This time I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
First by Jill. Second by Darren. All those in favor? And that passes 7-0. Thanks for coming out. Enjoy the rest of your summer. See you in 2 weeks.
Thanks, good job.